Hi, I'm Rena Nine, and following the unfolding situation out of Munich, Germany, where a shooting has taken place at a main mall there, a pretty upscale mall known as Einkaufszentrum. It's right next to the stadium there, the Munich stadium where the Olympics were held in the 70s. We are continuing to follow the situation. Hospitals are telling doctors on leave to please phone in, to come into the hospital building. We are also getting reports, the U.S. Embassy, the U.S. consulate there in Munich saying just a few minutes ago, sending out this tweet: "We strongly advise all to shelter in place. Munich police are reporting multiple shooting incidents in the city. Among those shooting incidents, Munich police are saying on Facebook, eyewitnesses reporting in the area of Honor Street, Rice Street, and as well as this complex you're seeing here, the Olympia Shopping Center. They are reporting accounts of shootings taking place in those areas in Munich." Joining me by phone is the Deputy Director of the Program on Extremism at George Washington University, the Cyber and Homeland Security, Seamus Hughes. Seamus, we're looking at this situation unfolding in Germany. When you're talking about the war on terror, Germany wasn't really a place that militants used to launch attacks. Again, we don't know who's behind these, but what do you make of this?
I think it's a very fluid situation, and time will tell to see who claims responsibility, if anyone, on these type of things. And it's possible that others are learning from groups like ISIS. But we have seen 600 to 800 foreign fighters, travel from Germany to Syria and Iraq. It's clearly been something that's been on the radar for European officials for a number of years. And the issue of what we're seeing in early reports, and I stress early reports, of multiple shooters tells us there's some level of operational security that had to be in place in order to plan this.
You're saying there must have been some level of coordination here, multiple shooters, at least 3, according to the eyewitnesses on the police Facebook page. And we're also, police sources are telling local German television there that 6 people now believed to be dead and multiple injuries. They're asking people to shelter in place, including the U.S. consulate, telling people not to leave their homes. Seamus, when you see something like this unfolding more and more in Europe, many people are worried something like this could happen in just a matter of time here in U.S. soil.
Yeah, and we've seen mass shootings in the U.S., unfortunately, on all forms of extremism. But as it relates to ISIS, as we saw ISIS-inspired attack in Orlando, and the question becomes whether this is the norm and whether this is the new era of terrorism. Is something that at least Western countries are going to have to deal with in a greater degree, especially with groups like ISIS and other extremist groups that are advocating for their followers to do these type of things. Again, with the caveat that this is early on, and we may see other forms of extremism playing a role here and learning from the techniques of ISIS.
We're now getting reports into our newsroom, Munich police saying that they suspect that this is a terror attack in Munich. They are warning people to remain in place. The subway system is shut down. At one point earlier, they had cleared out the Munich Central Railway Station. We are now hearing that they are evacuating, the German rail operators saying they're evacuating that main train station in Munich. We have seen over and over again from the 7/7 attacks in London that very often transportation is used as a method of attack.
Yes, it's very much a soft target, and you harden as best you can. But in a free society, there's going to be locations that you're just not going to be able to protect fully. And that's the trade-offs you have to do in a free society.
Seamus, you say this is now a new era of terrorism. What does that mean?
It means you're going to see you're likely going to see smaller scale attacks with more frequency. And unfortunately, that's just, I think, the reality of what we're dealing with now, with a group of individuals that are drawn to this ideology that pushes it and then advocates for their followers to act where they are.
Seamus, during the Iraq War, there was the big concern of these foreign fighters who were coming in through the Syria border, going into Iraq, then some of them returning to launch attacks. Now, it's not even that you have to travel there, that people are just inspired by what they're seeing on the internet. How do you combat that?
That's the most difficult part. The best technique that law enforcement has is the time between radicalization and mobilization, meaning that there is a subset of time where individuals collect arms, maybe possibly communicate with others. That's when you need to start interjecting. But again, you're talking about ones and twos of individuals. This is very difficult from a law enforcement perspective, especially when you look at Western law enforcement, who have been overwhelmed with the number of individuals who have been drawn to ISIS ideology, and it's essentially they're triaging the system and saying who are the threats we need to be worried about and who shouldn't we.
You were saying that the time between radicalization and mobilization, that could be a very short window. How does law enforcement get around that?
Yeah, that's also the larger question is that we're seeing that time that between flash to boom shorten significantly when you look at these cases. It's very difficult, and sometimes you're not going to be able to stop every attack, unfortunately, and that's the reality that I think people are going to have to essentially wrap their head around. And it's not something that you can kind of talk to the American public or the European public about this. It's going to take essentially human intelligence. How do you introduce people into the situation, and how do you figure out what the plotting is on this? But again, very difficult, especially in an era of inspired attacks.
Seamus Hughes from George Washington University joining us by phone. Seamus, thank you for phoning in.